I've worked in rural medicine before, so when I came to Alaska, I thought it'd be similar to what I experienced in Oklahoma. However, when I stepped off that plane into Fort Yukon, I was greeted by a village with only 600 people in it. I graduated with 450, so the size comparison was crazy to think about. There was only one grocery store which served as the hangout spot for people who were finished with their gardens, beading, or fishing. With the only way in or out of Fort Yukon being either by airplane or boat, the limitations placed on the clinical staff were nothing like I had experienced in Oklahoma. The doctor I shadowed would never have had to do her own lab work or insert an IV in an urban setting. But with limited staff and resources, one learns how to be self-sufficient and confident in their own abilities, whether that be through keeping a patient stable until LifeMed gets to the airport, or whether that be through tying your own net for fishing season. And most importantly, being a community with laughter and trust ultimately served as the tool for treating not just rural Alaskans, but all people involved, which is what I hope to take back with me and use when I become a physician.
I didn't bring any expectations. Heck, I was just there for the ride. I knew I was supposed to go to a hospital, just like I would for any shadowing, in some city called Soldotna, and really, when I got there, it felt like any hospital. I shadowed in an ED. Waiting was insane. All the patients would come in bursts. One day, I sat around waiting for 2 hours. Then suddenly, 10 patients came in with a plethora of problems. And each one was treated and streeted, just like home. Frankly, I felt a little ripped off. It was pretty similar to back home. I still enjoyed every second of it, but it wasn't super different. Don't get me wrong, I loved coming to Alaska. I'm a far away from home and I've seen some amazing things. But really, I could have gotten that hospital experience back in Tennessee. Being in a clinic was interesting, but despite the slightly more personal relationship between the provider and the patient, it was again all too familiar. But as I was sitting there, waiting, yet again, I reflected on the fact that people were still people despite the setting, and that everyone deserves the highest quality of care possible. Really, that's what I took out of this experience. A patient is a patient, despite being in Tennessee or Alaska.
When I arrived in Bethel, I brought a slew of misconceptions regarding healthcare in Bush, Alaska. I underestimated the statistics. The percentage of community members consumed with alcoholism, led to suicide, or betrayed by domestic and sexual violence seemed impossibly high. But it was true. I could find plaster patients in most clinics and all through town. And it was paralyzing to realize that hidden in houses, the statistics on suicide and sexual violence were also true and sadly incurable. Honestly, these truths got annoying. It's depressing, and it started hitting too close to home. But what I take away from Bethel is that somebody has to buck up and fix it. These clinics work their tails off and sacrifice the chance at a cushy alternative job in the suburbs of the lower 48 to make a difference. And they do. The preventative efforts of Bethel's healthcare system are the keystone in improving quality of life and lowering these unacceptably high statistics. But there's still plenty of work that needs to be done.